Well, you realize that Dr. Sali has passionately talked about whom he called a friend, maybe business partner, Professor Peter Platteau. He is here. We are going to have an engagement with Professor Peter, and he tells us what he knows about Dr. Sali and how they have related over the years.
Well, I'm a fertility specialist. I am from Brussels in Belgium, and I've been working in fertility since '96, so that's a long time. I worked in the infertility field in different countries, and then now the last 21 years in Belgium, in Brussels. I came to know Dr. Sali in the early 2000s in Kuwait, as I was invited to the hospital where he was working for the IVF unit there to do some troubleshooting. We obviously came in contact with each other. And then, as Dr. Sali already mentioned, I was there with the biologists, and I was there also with my father, who was interested to see a new country at the time. And I remember one evening, Dr. Sali invited us to his house to have dinner together with his family. Kate was also there. I still remember what we had for food. I will not say that. And there we discussed, I remember he was asking a lot of questions about fertility, what we are doing. He was very impressed with our protocols with azoospermic men who didn't have sperm, that we still managed to get the sperm and make pregnancy. And that's a little bit where it left. Then we continue going to Kuwait. Then the contract ended for Dr. Sali. And then one day he contacted me to come over here to Uganda. For me, it was a little bit, Uganda at the time didn't have a very good reputation. There was a war going on in the north. And the north, it became down quite far, I think, till Lira, the rebels were fighting. We decided to come over to do a first batch of patients. I think there were about 13 patients at the time that we did. And that was really in very basic circumstances. We had the house here, which was an apartment. I remember the blood tests, the analyzer of the blood test was in the kitchen. The pickup room where we did the intervention was in a bedroom. The bedroom beside it was the laboratory. But anyway, we managed to do it quite well. We had to invent and use our fantasy a bit to go around troubles. But at the end, we got quite some pregnancies, and these were the first pregnancies in sub-Saharan Africa afterwards, as it came out. And then later on, 9 months later, they delivered. And the first baby who was born after IVF here in sub-Saharan Africa was a little girl. Little girl, she's now 17, I think. So she's not such a little girl anymore. And she was called Stella.
Stella, yeah.
And Stella, I will never forget it, because the most common beer in Belgium is called Stella. I don't think they gave her that name because of us Belgians being here, but it was a coincidence. So I'll never forget the girl's name. And I remember before the first baby was born, it was very exciting times. We were here doing a second batch at the time. And suddenly the media got knowledge about the first IVF babies on the way, especially the New Vision. And I remember going at night to the New Vision headquarters to take the first newspaper where it was written about a big article about this IVF baby. And on the front page, it was written, "Pregnancy without sex." And that was how
Yeah.
Uganda, the journalists in Uganda, saw our work. So I don't know, maybe some people got scared that we were taking away the sex now and just making babies without it. But I thought this was a great thing.
No, it's true. All babies, IVF babies are all, no, there's no sex involved.
So when you read that story and
Yeah, it was true, yeah. I said it's true.
It is.
I think there was character, because I think the newspaper got it right, because pregnancy, that's how they could sell, people open their mind, because they think with babies are always, they come through because of sex, but it's not. This one, IVF, you don't need sex to have baby.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the time, there were these pamphlets all over Kampala, pregnancy without sex. Everywhere when you drove with the car, every corner, it was these white pamphlets. I still have some at home because I pinched some. Everywhere, the full of Kampala with this thing. And we were very excited at the time. And then, of course, then the first baby was born. And then the president came to open the clinic. And then it was like a roller coaster. Everything became bigger and bigger, and more patients came, and it became a big IVF clinic. I must say now, I think this clinic is the biggest fertility clinic in Africa. Well, at the time, I must say, we were concerned mainly about our safety. Dr. Sali told me, okay, don't worry, it's safe, there's no problem there. But what we see in Europe and in Belgium is in the media and the television, we saw Joseph Kony all the time, killing people, civil war, disasters happening. And my wife and my friends, my father, they said, are you going to this country? We see it all the time on TV, and they're killing people there all the time. And in fact, there was no problem at all here in Kampala. There was nothing at all. So that was our main fear at the time, going to this country. And in fact, we never had any problem at all then. And people in Uganda were very nice people, very friendly people. It was the other way around. And I nearly wanted to go to the press and say, look, guys, you should see it's a little bit different. In the north, there are some problems. In Kampala, there is no problem at all. From the working circumstances, well, yeah, we needed to use our fantasy. Of course, we come from a luxury setting in Brussels where everything is there, where you click on a button and you have electricity, in a setting where I remember for days we didn't have electricity. We had to jump to get a generator, we had to get petrol, and use our fantasy to solve problems very, very quickly, to help these patients and to get a good result of the treatment at the end, which we managed. And when I think about it, this is nearly 20 years ago, it's so much fun at the time. It was not fun at the time, I know, because we were stressed a lot. But now I thought this was fun. This was, we really helping things, we're sorting out problems, and we're enjoying this thing. It was really fun for the people who were working there at the time, and especially when you saw that the results were good, that we were getting these pregnancies. We were making these people pregnant after 10 years, 20 years that they were trying to get this pregnancy. So it was a challenge for us, but it was, it was very nice for us. It's more difficult to do research in Africa than in Europe. Because of the circumstances, but medicine is a little bit different in Africa than in Europe. There are different problems here than in Europe. We mentioned already the fibroids. Africa, it's a fibroid country. It's typical for African women. We have them in Europe, but not much. The other ones are genetic diseases, are completely different in Africa than in Europe. Sickle cell disease is something that is African. It's not in Belgium, we don't see this. So it's different medicine. Also, infectious diseases are much more common in Africa than in our country. So it's completely different. So the research we do in Europe, you have difficulties to take this over and put it into Africa because it's different circumstances. But we did some. We published, I don't know how long ago, an article in Human Reproduction, which is the main fertility journal in the world. We published an article together with Dr. Sali about infertility in Africa, the problems that there are, what kind of patients do we see, what do we need, how we got around this, and our results. And there was a big article that at the time that was published. We did some research in low-cost IVF because the problem in Africa is mainly economic problem. You have all these patients, you have plenty of patients, that's not a problem, but a lot of them cannot afford the fertility treatment, and that's why they don't come. So how can we get around it? Because in Europe it's very easy. My government is paying for all the IVF treatment. The patients do not have to pay anything. In Africa, it's the other way around. The government doesn't pay anything.
I think in Africa here, all African countries, including Uganda, it will take a long time for government to pay for IVF because there are other issues, more important issues, like infectious problem, diseases, TB. So the government, there's no way the government can sponsor patients to be. So to go around it is to increase the number of doctors who can treat, who can do IVF treatment. So once there's a big number of doctors, patients will also have good access. If these doctors are well trained, then they will lower their prices and so on. And I think this is one of the ways I would see the price to come down. Because I don't see in Africa to start making one of the most common expense in IVF is the medicine that we import. I think there's no way we can start a factory here. FSH, this is injection, it's called FSH, that is most expensive. Before they used to use it to get urine from post-menopausal women, and we manufacture that chemical from post-menopause. Women have gone into menopause. In Africa, most women die before the age of 45. So where are you going to get the urine? So now also the science has changed. You can do recombinant. We don't need to use urine. We do. So all those things needs machines and researchers and So I don't see how the cost will come down, but unless the number of practitioners of this increases to lower down the cost. I don't know, maybe Peter, you can. I don't know. Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, but I think going further on that one, an important thing is also education. And I think that's quite cheap, and that has to be started at the schools. Education is important, that people understand, especially women, they understand their fertility. They understand that when they are 50, there is a very low chance that they will get pregnant because it's too late. They will be menopausal. They don't have to wait till they're 50 because it's not going to work anymore. And I think also in prevention, because that's an easy one, prevention. And that again, in education in schools. You can tell the people that they should not start smoking or they should stop smoking. Because smoking is not only bad for your lungs, it also kills the sperms, it also kills the eggs in the women. And if you compare a woman who has been smoking her whole life with somebody who didn't smoke, a woman who smoked will go into menopause 5 years earlier than somebody who never smoked, because it kills the eggs. Like the same thing about STDs, sexual transmitted diseases. There are ways to prevent this by using condoms, because we see a lot of problems, tubal problems, that the tubes are blocked because of these sexually transmitted diseases, like colds, like gonorrhea, chlamydia, that can be prevented by just protecting themselves when they have sex. Another problem is, for example, the weight. Too thin or too fat is not good for fertility. Mother Nature protects them not falling pregnant because they are too thin or too obese. So good nutrition, not too much, not too little, is important to keep these patients fertile. Another one is the age, like I mentioned already. Don't wait till you're 40 or 45. If you have a problem and if you're not getting pregnant within 2-3 years, contact a doctor, because then there is a problem. Don't wait till after you're 40, because then it will be difficult for us. So there's plenty of education and prevention that can be done, which is cheap, to educate the people and to prevent that they have to come to this clinic to get the treatment.
Every year we extend what we call a Samaritan Hand. How can we help peasants? They've been married 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. You know, and it's very important here in African context, somebody to have a child. Once you're married, you need to have a child. So we're trying to extend to lower the price by speaking to our drug providers to give us a good discount. We can pass it over to these people. It doesn't happen every month, but it's probably once a year. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, I think the results have been good. We've had some very successful, especially I'm so happy to see some peasants having children even after the age of 50.
For me, it was a wonderful adventure. And I would have never realized at that time, in 2003, that we will be sitting here 2021 in a big clinic with satellite clinics in different countries, treating thousands of people a year, and having become the biggest IVF clinic in Central Africa. I would have dreamed that one. If somebody would have told me that in 2003, I would have told him, you are crazy. I would just have a laugh and that's it. And here we are and we're talking about this. So this is a wonderful adventure. And it's thanks to Dr. Sali who did it. And it's mainly his perseverance. He had this idea, like he talked already about it, and he went for it. And we had problems. We had obstructions. We had people who made our life difficult. But he went for it. And he surpassed his problems. And I think this is a good lesson for life, to surpass them, to continue like that, till you get the thing you wanted, to get it. And we got it. And he got it also. And he did it perfectly.
For me, as a believer, I believe it's God's mercies that we've reached here. It was God who planned it, it's not me. Because so many people, I would say, people I went to school with, I look back, I look at them, they haven't succeeded as I am. So I'm just, by grace of God, and it's actually, I humble myself to see where I used to be the last in the class, walking 20 miles a day, return journey, with no shoes. Now I can buy, I don't know how many pairs of shoes. I didn't have shoes, but now I have so many pair of shoes. I used to love to drive a nice car. I used to see them in the magazines, nice Toyota, Benz or something. Now I can afford it. So I'm so grateful. And also, most importantly, the Lord has helped us to establish this school, and also we're helping so many pastors retired pastors mainly, who not financially but also helping them to live a decent life, from pit latrine to latrines which, with water, flushing water. This gives me joy. I wouldn't, because I lived in a house myself in the pit latrine when I was growing up, and there was accidents also before. People used to fall there. But now I see. We are leaving a legacy of this particular branch of medicine, that nobody right now, if you want to have a child, even irrespective of the age, you can have a child. I will remind them of the Sarah in the Bible, which she became pregnant at the age of 90. The husband was 100. So those women who are there, don't be embarrassed to come to the clinic when you're 70. Of course, Peter is... it's not about it, but I think you don't wait too long now. Come before you're 50 or 60. You can have a child. And you young men and women, try to have your babies soon.
It is still a wonderful adventure that we had together. And I'm thankful that I met Dr. Sali so many years ago, 20 years ago, and we made something beautiful together, which nobody will ever take away from me. And I enjoyed it 100% every day here. And we had troubles. We went through these troubles. We had a lot of things to solve, but we made something beautiful. And I think over these years, we made thousands of couples happy because they were childless, and now they are happy because they have the children. And it's the story is not finished yet. We're continuing like that. For research, I think you mentioned already low-cost IVF. What is the most important thing here that we should do in Africa is to bring these prices down, is to bring this threshold down that people can come here to the clinic and can have these babies. That's not something in Europe where everybody get paid anyway from the government. It's here that you have to do this research, to educate people, to educate the patients, to educate also colleagues, and to pass this message. So there is still plenty of things to do. It doesn't stop here.
My message is to my fellow doctors, obstetrician, gynecologist, and others, is try to be there's this competition which prevents so many people being referred to good centers because you want to keep the money to yourself. And that's the attitude of so many doctors here, I'm sorry to say. But I want them, those who are listening, to be open. If you can't manage something, don't be embarrassed. Send that person to the right person who is doing that particular job. I send many patients to people who maybe had problem or something, rather than me dealing with something which I don't know. I'm not specialized in. But I think the low cost is going to come down as also the government tries to understand what we do to make family happy and marriages. So many marriages have been saved.